A mother refused life-saving treatment for her 8-year-old daughter, claiming carrot juice could cure her. But when the little girl nearly died from diabetic ketoacidosis, I finally told the mother the truth about her child's condition. And she walked out, still insisting the carrots were working. Imagine standing face to face with a parent, knowing their child is dying, and they just smile. That's exactly what happened when I met Brenda, a mother who believed carrot juice could save her little girl from a death sentence. A little girl who was just 8 years old and had type 1 diabetes. I'll never forget the day I met Lily. She was just 8 years old, diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and without insulin, she wouldn't live 6 months. Her pancreas was essentially dead. So, I called her mom, Brenda, into my office to explain the gravity of the situation. I laid it all out, the urgent need for insulin, the very real danger. But Brenda just sat there, completely unconcerned, almost breezy. "Oh, I know all about the diabetes," she chirped. "The other doctor mentioned it last week. We're handling it naturally, though. No insulin needed." My blood ran cold. I actually thought I'd misheard her. "Brenda," I remember saying, my voice tight, "your daughter needs insulin to live. Her pancreas doesn't work. She will die without it." Brenda just offered a serene smile. "Oh, we're doing carrot juice therapy instead. 60 ounces a day. Diabetes is just toxin buildup, you see. The juice flushes it out." She said it like she was sharing a new recipe, not discussing her daughter's life-threatening illness. I tried to show her Lily's test results, tried to make her understand. Her blood sugar is 680, she could slip into a coma any moment. But Brenda stood up, pulled Lily to her feet, and Lily looked so weak, so pale. "Well, thanks for your opinion," Brenda said, already moving for the door. "But we're good. The carrot cleanse takes 3 weeks to work fully. We're only on week 2. I physically blocked the doorway. "You can't leave," I pleaded, my voice rising. "She's in diabetic ketoacidosis. She needs emergency treatment now." Brenda actually laughed. "This is why people don't trust doctors," she sneered. "You create fake emergencies. Move, or I'm calling security on you." And then she simply pushed past me, dragging her barely conscious daughter out of my office. The moment they were gone, I was on the phone. My supervisor, hospital legal, everyone. We needed an emergency ethics meeting. A child was going to die. My stomach was in knots. Within an hour, social services, the chief of pediatrics, and our legal team were on a conference call. That's when we found out Brenda had been flagged at 3 other hospitals, always leaving the moment doctors mentioned insulin. I explained it all. She's giving her type 1 diabetic daughter only carrot juice. The kid's in active ketoacidosis. She'll be dead in weeks, maybe even days. But legal's hands were tied. Without immediate, undeniable danger, we couldn't force treatment. So the chief suggested we call Brenda back for a formal care meeting, make it sound routine. Surprisingly, when I called, she was incredibly cheerful. "Oh, a second opinion? Sure. I love educating doctors about natural healing." That afternoon, she returned, pulling a rolling suitcase. Inside, a stack of printed Facebook posts, blog articles, and a laptop. She set it all up like she was giving a business presentation. "Let me show you how Big Pharma created the diabetes lie," she announced. She actually had slides. Slide 1, insulin is made from GMO bacteria. Slide 2, diabetes didn't exist before 1920. Slide 3, every culture has a vegetable that cures diabetes. Our chief of pediatrics, Dr. Moore, finally cut her off. "Ma'am," he said, his voice flat, "your daughter's blood sugar was 680. She's dying." Brenda, unfazed, clicked to her next slide. "That's exactly what they want you to think. Look at this graph I made." My jaw nearly hit the floor. Just a couple of days later, the call came. The school. Lily had collapsed in the cafeteria, completely unresponsive. When the paramedics brought her in, my heart sank. I recognized her instantly. That distinct, horrifying orange tint to her skin was unmistakable. Her blood sugar? 1100. She was in a full-blown diabetic coma. About 20 minutes later, Brenda rushed in, still clutching that ridiculous suitcase. She fainted because they gave her school lunch instead of her juice, she shrieked, totally ignoring the fact her daughter was unconscious. "That processed food is poison." And then Lily started seizing, right there, on the gurney. Foam, mixed with that sickening orange liquid frothed from her mouth. It was horrific. But Brenda's face, it lit up. "It's working!" she yelled, practically giddy. "The toxins are finally leaving! Look how much is coming out!" I didn't even think. I shoved past her, desperate to administer emergency insulin. But she grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "I do not consent," she screamed. "This is assault. I'll sue everyone in this hospital." Security guards rushed in, and Brenda threw herself over Lily's convulsing body. "No chemicals! She's healing naturally!" Two guards had to physically lift her off, her screams echoing through the trauma bay. "You're interfering with God's medicine. Carrots are mentioned in the Bible." We finally got the insulin in, but it was too late. Lily's heart stopped. As we started chest compressions, Brenda, held back by security, actually laughed. A chilling, insane laugh. "See? Your insulin killed her. If you'd waited 5 more minutes, the carrot juice would have worked." We worked on Lily for what felt like an eternity. 3 agonizing minutes of CPR. We got her back. Brenda was now on the floor, handcuffed, still screaming about her Facebook group. The monitors started beeping, a blessed, normal rhythm. I watched Lily's numbers slowly climb back to safe levels as 2 security guards dragged Brenda out of the trauma bay, still screaming about killing my daughter with chemicals. The insulin drip was finally working. Lily's blood sugar plummeted from 1100 to 800 in just 20 minutes, nurses constantly checking her vitals. Brenda's voice still echoed, demanding her phone so she could live stream this medical kidnapping to her 40,000 natural healing warriors. Security moved her to a separate room, and I immediately called hospital legal. CPS was already on their way. About 30 minutes later, Lily's eyes fluttered open. The poor thing immediately turned her head and vomited a torrent of bright orange liquid all over the bed rails. I grabbed a basin, held her hair back, and watched her heave what looked like gallons of carrot juice mixed with stomach acid. Between wretches, she cried for her mom, asking why her tummy hurt so bad. It was heartbreaking. A nurse cleaned her up, and I tried to reassure her, explaining she was very sick, but we were helping her get better. Within the hour, Angela Morrison from CPS arrived, a thick folder under her arm. She asked for all of Lily's medical records, today's and every past visit. Her face hardened with each page, especially when she saw that alarming blood sugar of 101 and the notes flagging Brenda from 3 other hospitals. She asked me to walk her through everything, meticulously taking notes on her tablet. 2 hours later, I was in the break room, my hands still shaking as I typed up every single detail for the legal documentation. All I could think about was my own 8-year-old daughter at home. This child had almost died because her mother chose to believe Facebook posts over doctors. My phone buzzed, texts from other staff. A crowd was forming outside. I looked out the window. 40 or so people, signs waving, parents know best, and big pharma kills. They were live streaming, chanting, while hospital security struggled to keep them away from the entrance. Angela found me. "I need to interview Lily before her mother's lawyer shows up," she said. I led her to the pediatric ward. Angela pulled out some dolls and sat on the floor, gently asking Lily to show her what she ate and drank at home. Lily used the mommy doll to make the kid doll drink a huge cup of yucky orange juice every 2 hours, even at night when she was trying to sleep. She said it made her tummy hurt, and she was always so tired she couldn't play with her friends. Angela recorded everything, as Lily described how mommy said the juice would make the bad sugar bugs go away. While this was happening, Dr. Moore, our chief of pediatrics, was in an emergency ethics committee meeting with other physicians. For an hour, they scoured Ohio's medical neglect laws, desperately trying to find enough evidence for emergency custody. They knew Brenda would refuse all treatment, but these cases, especially where parents refused things like cancer treatment or blood transfusions, often took months to resolve through the courts. Time was not on our side. Then, a breakthrough. Angela got a call, stepped out, and came back beaming. She'd located Lily's father, Nathan Holloway, in Cincinnati, and he was driving up immediately. 3 hours later, Nathan walked through our emergency department doors, looking utterly bewildered and terrified. "Where's my daughter?" he choked out. Angela sat him down and calmly explained everything. Lily's type 1 diabetes diagnosis, how she'd nearly died from untreated ketoacidosis, and the horrifying truth. Brenda had never told him a thing. His face went stark white as Angela showed him the blood sugar readings and explained that Brenda had been force-feeding Lily carrot juice for weeks. He kept repeating, "I had no idea. Brenda never mentioned anything. Not during his weekend visits, not ever." Angela took him to see Lily. She was sleeping, a tiny form hooked up to an IV. Nathan just stood there, staring, his eyes wide, taking in how alarmingly thin and orange his daughter had become. Then he asked where Brenda was, and Angela simply pointed him towards the room where security was watching her. Nathan didn't hesitate. He stormed down the hall, pushing open the door to find Brenda typing furiously on her phone, surrounded by her endless printouts. She looked up and immediately unleashed a torrent of rage, yelling that he had no right to be there, that she had primary custody. She made all medical decisions. Nathan's voice cracked, raw with emotion. Why didn't you ever tell me our daughter had diabetes? That she was dying? Brenda stood up, completely unrepentant. You're brainwashed by the medical establishment just like everyone else, she spat. If you try to interfere, I'll revoke your visitation rights completely. Nathan's hands were shaking, trembling with a mixture of grief and fury. Security had to escort Brenda out, her screams of medical kidnapping and Facebook support group echoing behind them. Angela was already back at her laptop, pulling up forms for an emergency custody petition. She told me she'd taken enough notes to file immediately with family court. Within 20 minutes, she had Judge Catherine Foster on the phone, explaining the dire situation. I stood there, watching Lily's vitals on the monitor, slowly, mercifully, stabilizing. The judge scheduled an emergency hearing for the very next morning and ordered that Lily remain in the hospital until then. Angela hung up and immediately started collecting witness statements from every nurse and doctor who'd been involved in Lily's harrowing care. That evening, I stayed late, long after my shift ended, compelled to monitor Lily's blood sugar. I found her awake, a tiny figure clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. She looked up at me with eyes so wide and vulnerable and asked, "Am I going to die like my goldfish did last month?" My heart broke. I pulled up a chair next to her bed, my voice soft. I explained that her body needed help making something called insulin like a car needs gas to run. The sheer, horrifying simplicity of her question gnawed at me. How could a mother convince herself that carrot juice could replace a vital, non-existent hormone? Did she truly believe vegetables could restart a pancreas that had literally died? Lily just nodded, then quietly confessed that her mom told her vegetables were better than medicine, but they made her stomach hurt all the time. I gently showed her an insulin pen, let her hold the small, innocuous device, explaining how it was like a tiny key that helped sugar get into her cells. She fell, asleep, a fragile picture of innocence, still clutching her rabbit, the insulin pen clutched in her other hand. I stayed for hours, adjusting her IV drip, checking her levels every 30 minutes. Around midnight, my phone started buzzing. Notifications from colleagues, urgent messages. Check social media now. Someone had posted my full name, my photo, even my home address, on a natural healing Facebook group with 45,000 members. The post called me a child abuser working for Big Pharma. It even included a photo of my car with my license plate. My blood ran cold. Comments were flooding in. People threatening to show up at my house, to save children from medical tyranny. Hospital security immediately assigned a guard to the pediatric ward, and another to walk me to my car when I finally left. The next few hours were eerily quiet. But at 3 a.m., the night nurse hit the emergency button. Brenda. She'd somehow gotten past the main desk, wearing scrubs she'd clearly bought from a medical supply store. She was standing over Lily's bed, a thermos of carrot juice in hand, trying to force it into Lily's mouth while Lily sobbed and struggled. Security rushed in, grabbing Brenda's arms just as orange liquid spilled all over the hospital sheets and floor. Brenda was screaming, truly unhinged, claiming she was saving her baby from poison, that we were all murderers. They dragged her out, her threats echoing through the quiet halls, suing everyone from the janitor to the hospital board. Security immediately banned her from the premises and called the police to file trespassing charges. The next morning, the courtroom was packed. Judge Foster sat, calm and stern, reviewing a stack of medical files. Brenda sat at the defendant's table, her rolling suitcase beside her. She'd refused a court-appointed lawyer, insisting she would represent herself to expose the truth about the medical conspiracy. The judge's face remained neutral as Brenda opened her suitcase and began pulling out printed blog posts about vaccine injuries. She had color-coded tabs, a 3-ring binder overflowing with evidence against Western medicine, compiled from various websites. She stood up, ready to present a PowerPoint showing how diabetes was invented by insulin manufacturers in 1921. The judge, in a quiet but firm voice, told her to sit down and await her turn. I was called to testify first. I brought Lily's complete medical records, detailing her blood glucose reading of 1100 when she arrived. I explained how her pancreas had utterly failed, showing the lab results proving severe ketoacidosis. The judge looked at me directly, her gaze piercing. "Doctor," she asked, "how long would Lily have survived without treatment?" "Maybe 2 or 3 more days, Your Honor," I replied, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Brenda exploded. "Objection! she shrieked, exactly like she'd seen on TV. The judge ignored her, simply telling her to remain seated. I continued, describing how Lily's organs were beginning to shut down, how her blood had turned acidic from the ketones. Next, Nathan testified. His voice was raw, breaking as he described receiving frantic texts from Brenda, calling him toxic for letting Lily eat birthday cake at a party. He showed the judge screenshots where Brenda claimed processed food was child abuse and threatened to take away his weekend visits. He explained how, after their divorce 2 years ago, Brenda had become consumed by these online natural healing groups, spending thousands on supplements, special water filters, and detoxing children courses. Then, Angela played the recording of her interview with Lily from the hospital bed. The courtroom went utterly silent. Lily's small voice describing being too tired to play at recess, her stomach always hurting, throwing up carrot juice, but her mom making her drink more. You could hear the faint jingling of her stuffed rabbit as she shifted in the hospital bed during the recording. When it was Brenda's turn to cross-examine me, she pulled out a blog post about doctors receiving kickbacks from insulin companies. She demanded to know how much money I had received from Big Pharma to poison children with synthetic hormones. The judge, her patience visibly fraying, warned her to ask relevant questions about the medical care, not make baseless accusations. Brenda then launched into a tirade, asking if I knew indigenous tribes cured diabetes with tree bark, accusing me of suppressing natural remedies. She claimed the hospital got paid for every dose of insulin, which was why we were keeping Lily prisoner. Judge Foster finally called a recess when Brenda started yelling about the Nuremberg trials and medical experiments on children. She specifically requested documentation from the 3 other hospitals where Brenda had been flagged for refusing treatment. The bailiff escorted Brenda to a separate room, where she continued to scream about her constitutional rights being violated. During the lunch recess, I saw Nathan in the hospital cafeteria, alone, staring blankly at his phone. He'd pulled up photos from Lily's birthday just 3 months ago. She looked so different then, her cheeks round and full, not hollowed like they were now. His hands were shaking as he called his boss, requesting emergency family leave. His boss didn't even ask questions when he heard the word diabetes. Back in the courtroom, Dr. Patel took the stand. She was phenomenal, explaining how type 1 diabetes works, showing charts of the catastrophic damage to organs when blood sugar stays too high. The pancreas stops making insulin completely, she emphasized, and it never starts again. No amount of vegetables or juice can fix dead cells. Brenda, though, just kept shaking her head, scribbling furiously on her legal pad, clearly convinced she knew better. When it was her turn, she stood up, phone in hand. She'd arranged for her expert witness to testify by speakerphone. A voice came over the line, someone calling himself Dr. Marcus from California. He immediately launched into a rambling monologue about toxins and natural healing. Judge Foster cut him off. "Sir," she interjected, "what is your medical license number?" It turns out Dr. Marcus wasn't a doctor at all. Just some guy who sold carrot juice supplements online. The judge cut the call off mid-sentence. Brenda tried to argue that credentials didn't matter when someone had real knowledge. But Judge Foster had heard enough. She ruled. Lily faced immediate danger without proper medical treatment. Temporary emergency custody went to CPS, with Nathan getting immediate physical custody. Brenda erupted. She jumped up, screaming about appeals in the Supreme Court, lunging towards Nathan until the bailiff had to physically restrain her. 2 hours later, Dr. Martinez met Nathan in Lily's hospital room with a bag full of supplies. She showed him how to check blood sugar with a meter, how to calculate insulin doses, and how to use the injection pen. Nathan's hands wouldn't stop shaking as he practiced on an orange. "What if I give too much?" he fretted. "What if it's too little?" Dr. Martinez patiently stayed with him for an hour until he could do it without help. That night, Brenda's online world exploded. Someone started a GoFundMe called Save Lily from Medical Kidnapping. Within 6 hours, they'd raised $30,000. The description painted Lily as a victim of Big Pharma, using old photos of her looking healthy. By morning, the story had metastasized, spreading to 3 anti-vaccine groups and a homeschooling forum. The next day, 50 people showed up outside the hospital with signs, chanting about medical freedom and parental rights. Someone had even made t-shirts with Lily's picture, emblazoned with the words "stolen by the state." Local news arrived within the hour, interviewing several protesters. That evening, Dr. Martinez sat alone in her apartment, eating leftover Chinese food. The news came on, and there was her face, plastered next to the word "kidnapper" in bold letters. The reporter called it a controversial case dividing the community. Meanwhile, Angela, ever diligent, drove to Brenda's house with a court order for investigation. The kitchen cabinets were crammed with bottles of supplements, each promising to cure something different. The fridge held nothing but carrot juice, celery juice, and bags of raw vegetables. Angela photographed everything: the stacks of books about natural diabetes cures, even the syringes she found in the bathroom, for vitamin B12 shots, not insulin. Back at the hospital, Lily had finally started eating real food again after 3 days on IV nutrition. The nurses brought her chicken nuggets, and she ate 4 before stopping. But then they brought mac and cheese, and the moment she saw that orange color, she started crying, pushing the tray away, pulling the blanket over her head. Our child psychology team noted signs of severe food-related trauma. Nathan, meanwhile, hadn't left Lily's side in 4 days. He slept in the chair next to her bed, his phone alarm set for every 2 hours. Every time it chirped, he'd check her blood sugar, meticulously noting the number in a small notebook. The nurses told him he didn't need to check that often, but he couldn't stop. He was haunted by the thought of her sugar dropping while he slept. On day 5, the nurse came in, a stack of papers in her hand. Brenda had hired a lawyer, a notorious one named David Kessler, known for taking crazy parental rights cases. He'd already filed a barrage of motions, claiming the hospital was violating Brenda's rights, demanding an independent doctor examine Lily. Nathan read through the legal papers while Lily slept, each page tying his stomach into tighter knots. The next morning, Dr. Martinez came in. She looked exhausted, her eyes shadowed. She told Nathan she'd been getting death threats from people in Brenda's Facebook group. Someone had posted her home address online. Now she had to take different routes to work every day. The hospital administrators wanted her to take time off, but she flatly refused. "I'm not leaving until Lily is safe," she stated, her voice firm. Our legal team had started compiling all the records from the 3 other hospitals where Brenda had refused treatment. It painted a grim picture. Brenda had been going from doctor to doctor for months, desperately searching for someone who would validate her carrot juice theory. It made me wonder, too, how those protesters got Lily's photo for their t-shirts so fast. The way they organized overnight with matching shirts and signs. It felt like Brenda's online groups had been planning something like this even before she was arrested. Then Angela from CPS showed Nathan something on her laptop that made his face go green. Brenda had been selling diabetes cure packages online for $500 each. Carrot juice powder, instructions she called her protocol. The website showed she'd made over $20,000 from desperate parents whose kids had diabetes. That afternoon, Lily woke up and looked at Nathan, her big eyes wide with innocent confusion. "Daddy," she asked, "why did Mommy make me drink the yucky orange juice if it made me so sick?" Nathan sat on the edge of her bed, trying to find the right words, trying to explain that sometimes people's brains get mixed up about what's real. He gently told her that her mom loved her, but she just got confused about what would truly help her feel better. 2 days later, a nurse showed Nathan her phone. Brenda was on some conspiracy theory podcast, calmly telling the host that the government was using Lily to silence people who knew about natural healing. The host kept spouting inflammatory rhetoric, urging listeners to take action against the hospital and stop them from poisoning kids with insulin. That very same day, someone tried to hack into the hospital's computer system, using fake credentials to access Lily's medical records. Our IT department traced it back to an IP address connected to Brenda's Facebook group, and Dr. Williams immediately ordered extra security for the pediatric ward. Dr. Martinez, meanwhile, looked worse every day. She finally sought out the hospital therapist. She later confided in Nathan that she kept having nightmares about Lily dying, seeing her in cardiac arrest over and over. The therapist kept reassuring her that she had saved Lily's life, but Dr. Martinez couldn't stop thinking about those 3 agonizing minutes when Lily's heart wasn't beating. On day 10, that audacious lawyer, Kessler, filed a federal lawsuit claiming the hospital was discriminating against Brenda's religious beliefs about natural healing. News channels ran segments with experts debating whether believing in carrot juice was a protected religious belief. Nathan's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. His boss texted, if he didn't come back to work by Monday, he'd be let go. His sister offered to watch Lily during the custody hearing, but Nathan couldn't imagine leaving her side for even a few hours. The legal papers kept piling up on the table next to Lily's bed, a constant reminder of the fight, while Lily, incredibly, practiced checking her own blood sugar with a nurse. 2 days later, Angela called me. She'd been deep diving into Brenda's social media history. What she found was chilling. For the past 3 years, Brenda had been in these online groups. It started normally enough after Lily's diagnosis, asking about sugar-free recipes, insulin pump brands. A scared mother trying to understand, joining legitimate diabetes support groups. But about 2 years ago, the tone shifted. Sharply. She joined a group called Natural Healing Warriors, 30,000 members strong, all convinced that chronic diseases were caused by toxins and curable with the right foods. Angela had screenshots of Brenda's posts, becoming more extreme each month, first questioning insulin, then claiming doctors lied about diabetes being incurable, then finally, triumphantly, declaring she'd found the cure through carrot juice after some woman in Australia posted about it. The progression was terrifying, a clear, horrifying line showing when she stopped trusting medicine and started believing Facebook posts over her own daughter's endocrinologist. By day 12, Lily was amazing at checking her blood sugar without crying. Nathan brought her a pink glucose meter she'd picked out online, replacing the hospital's boring gray one. That afternoon, she burst into my office, holding up the meter like a trophy, a wide, proud grin on her face. Nathan stood behind her, actually smiling for the first time since this whole nightmare began. Lily had written all her readings in a small notebook, circling the good ones in green marker, drawing smiley faces. This little girl was actually proud of managing her disease, understanding that insulin shots made the numbers go down, and the numbers going down made her feel better. Just then, Nathan's phone rang. His face went white as he answered. It was Dorothy, Brenda's mother, calling from Florida, where she had moved after retiring. She had something important to tell him about her daughter. Nathan put her on speaker. Dorothy's voice was shaking. Brenda, she explained, had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder 5 years ago, and she'd stopped taking her medication 2 years ago, exactly when she joined those online groups. Dorothy had begged her to stay on the mood stabilizers, but Brenda insisted they were poison, switching to herbal supplements from a website promising to cure mental illness naturally. The timeline matched perfectly. Dorothy had watched her daughter transform from a loving mother into someone who believed everyone was conspiring against her. She was willing to fly up and testify. The custody hearing started 3 days later, in a packed courtroom. Judge Foster spent the first hour silently reading through our medical documents. Brenda showed up with about 15 people from her Facebook group who kept shouting about medical tyranny until the judge threatened to clear the room. They held signs about vaccine injuries, yelling that we were all paid by pharmaceutical companies. Security had to physically remove 3 of them when they tried to approach the judge with their homemade evidence binders. When it was my turn, I showed the court photos of Lily's arrival. Her skin bright orange from beta-carotene overdose, her tiny body so dehydrated she could barely stand. I presented her blood sugar readings from that day, explaining she was hours from death. The photos were gut-wrenching, her sunken, unfocused eyes, lips cracked and bleeding. Brenda kept interrupting, yelling that the photos were doctored, that Lily was just tired from detoxing. That evening, Nathan was helping Lily with her math homework in her hospital room, desperately trying to keep things normal amidst the chaos. Lily looked up from her fractions, her gaze direct. "Daddy?" she asked. "Am I ever going to live with Mommy again?" Nathan froze, holding his pencil. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that her mother's love had been twisted into something dangerous by internet conspiracy theories? He finally told her they needed to focus on getting her healthy first, and they'd figure out the rest later. The next day, Brenda's attorney tried to argue that conventional medicine had been wrong before, bringing up thalidomide and every medical scandal from the past century. But our expert witness calmly explained the crucial difference between medications that went through proper trials and failed versus rejecting proven treatments that had saved millions. He pointed out that insulin had been used successfully since 1922. Without it, every type 1 diabetic in history had died within months. Brenda's attorney kept trying to frame it as medical freedom, but the judge wasn't buying it when a child's life was at stake. Day 14, Dorothy arrived from Florida. You could see the profound pain in her eyes as she described watching her daughter descend into delusion. Brenda, a rational person, transformed into someone convinced the entire medical system was trying to kill her granddaughter. Dorothy testified about finding Brenda's medication in the trash 2 years ago, replaced by bottles of sketchy supplements from some website claiming bipolar disorder was caused by vitamin deficiencies. Dorothy broke down crying, describing Brenda calling her at 3 a.m., ranting about the government putting chemicals in insulin to control children's minds. Brenda screamed from her seat, "My mother is part of the conspiracy. They got to her too. She's been brainwashed by her doctor friends." Angela then presented bank records. Brenda had been selling her own diabetes cure protocol online for $200 per consultation, using Lily's story as a testimonial even while her daughter was dying. The records showed she'd made over $8,000 in the past year, most of which went to more supplements and tickets to natural healing conferences where she was starting to speak as an expert. She'd built a following, positioning herself as a mother who'd discovered what doctors didn't want people to know. The evidence was irrefutable. She had a clear financial incentive to keep pushing the carrot juice cure, even as Lily grew sicker. During a bathroom break, I ran into Brenda in the courthouse bathroom. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, she spoke to me calmly. No yelling, no rage. She looked at me in the mirror, her eyes strangely clear. "I know you mean well," she whispered, "but you're too indoctrinated by your training to see the truth about natural healing." It was the saddest moment of the whole ordeal. In that quiet bathroom, without her supporters around, I saw glimpses of the scared mother she'd been before the internet convinced her she knew better than doctors. 2 weeks later, the courtroom was packed again. The prosecutor stood up and announced a surprise witness. A woman appeared on the video screen from her home in Michigan, her face puffy, tear-streaked. She explained how her 10-year-old son had died 3 months ago after she followed Brenda's exact carrot juice protocol from the Facebook group. The chilling irony of Brenda's own journey, from fearful mom to delusional expert, replayed in my mind. The witness held up printed screenshots of Brenda's posts, telling her to increase the juice when her son got sicker, because that meant the toxins were leaving faster. The woman sobbed, describing finding her son unconscious, surrounded by empty carrot juice bottles. Brenda just kept shaking her head, scribbling notes on her legal pad, utterly detached. The judge called a recess and asked to see Lily in chambers with only the child advocate. I waited outside for 40 agonizing minutes, listening to Brenda tell her new lawyer that the Michigan mom obviously didn't follow the protocol correctly. When the advocate came out, she carried drawings Lily had made. One showed a girl drinking orange juice with a frowny face and the word yucky written above it. Another showed the same girl in a hospital bed with a smiley face. The last one showed her mom surrounded by hearts, but also had dark, chaotic scribbles around her hands. Nathan's sister took the stand next, describing Lily's weekend visits over the past 6 months. She'd noticed Lily drinking water constantly, needing bathroom breaks every 20 minutes, but she dismissed it as a phase. She admitted, with heartbreaking regret, that she should have said something when Lily fell asleep at her cousin's birthday party and couldn't be woken up for cake. Dr. Martinez then testified about Lily's remarkable recovery, pulling up charts on the courtroom screen showing perfect blood sugar levels for the past 2 weeks on insulin. She explained how Lily's body was finally healing, noting that the orange tint to her skin had completely faded. Brenda's lawyer asked if carrot juice had any benefits. Dr. Martinez calmly replied, "Sure, vitamin A is good, but it can't replace insulin for type 1 diabetes any more than it could replace a kidney for someone in kidney failure." Brenda leapt up, shouting that doctors don't understand natural healing because they're trained by pharmaceutical companies. The judge sternly warned her to sit down or be removed. When Brenda finally took the stand, she wheeled her suitcase to the witness box, pulling out the same Facebook printouts from our first meeting. She insisted the other child died because his mother used store-bought juice instead of fresh-pressed organic carrots. She claimed Lily was actually getting better before the hospital interfered, and that the seizure was proof the toxins were leaving her pancreas. The prosecutor asked if she had any medical training. Brenda proudly declared she'd done over 300 hours of research on natural healing websites. She even pulled out a certificate from an online course called Beating Big Pharma Naturally, which she'd bought for $49. The guardian ad litem testified next, recommending Nathan receive full custody immediately, with Brenda only allowed supervised visits after completing mental health treatment. Brenda, enraged, fired her lawyer right there in court, declaring she'd represent herself since everyone was conspiring against her. The judge allowed her to continue pro SC, but warned her about her courtroom behavior. Dr. Patel from our ethics committee explained, her voice firm, how the hospital had no choice but to treat Lily. Denying insulin to a type 1 diabetic, she stated, is essentially a death sentence. She showed the committee's unanimous vote and read their statement. Parental rights do not include the right to deny life-saving medical care based on internet conspiracy theories. Nathan took the stand and immediately his composure shattered. He began to cry. He admitted he traveled for work and had trusted Brenda with medical decisions. He showed the court his phone, detailing every insulin dose, blood sugar reading, and meal since Lily's discharge. He'd quit his traveling job, taking a local position with lower pay, just to be home every day for Lily. He testified about finding Brenda's Facebook group, reading posts where she called him a weak-minded sheep for believing doctors. When Brenda cross-examined Nathan, she accused him of planning this whole thing to steal custody. She claimed he'd always resented her natural parenting choices, like extended breastfeeding and co-sleeping. She waved papers showing Nathan had Googled divorce lawyers 6 months ago, even before Lily got sick. Nathan explained he had been considering divorce because Brenda had joined multiple conspiracy groups and was spending their savings on supplements and courses. Security moved closer as Brenda's voice grew louder, her accusations more unhinged. She actually accused Nathan of poisoning Lily to make her diabetic in the first place. The prosecutor's final piece of evidence was chilling. Screenshots from Brenda's social media on the very day Lily went into cardiac arrest. Brenda had posted in her Facebook group that the foam coming from Lily's mouth was beautiful evidence of healing, asking for prayers that the hospital wouldn't interfere with God's natural medicine. She'd actually streamed herself in the ER, yelling at me while Lily was coding in the background. The comments from her group members were horrifying, encouraging her to fight doctors, one even suggesting a citizen's arrest of medical staff for attempted murder. The prosecutor also showed Brenda's GoFundMe page, where she'd raised $8,000 for legal fees to sue the hospital for assault and battery, claiming doctors had forcibly poisoned her daughter with synthetic hormones made from GMO bacteria against her explicit wishes as a parent. The next witness was a pediatric psychiatrist, who took the stand holding a thick folder of notes from her sessions with Lily. She explained how the forced carrot juice consumption had created severe food aversions that would require months of therapy to overcome. Lily now gagged at the sight of anything orange and had panic attacks when anyone even mentioned vegetables. The psychiatrist showed videos from their sessions, Lily shaking and crying when shown pictures of carrots or asked about her time with her mother. Meanwhile, at the hospital, I found myself stopping by Lily's room even on my days off. She'd started calling me Dr. Rachel instead of Dr. Martinez, and her face would light up when I walked in. One afternoon, she grabbed my hand, her small fingers warm. "Will you still visit me after I leave the hospital?" she asked. "Of course I will," I told her, and she hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. The custody hearing was scheduled. For the following week, everyone preparing their final arguments. Then, in the middle of Angela's testimony, Brenda stood up. She placed a hand on her stomach and announced, her voice booming, "I'm 3 months pregnant with my new boyfriend's baby." The courtroom went silent for 2 agonizing seconds before erupting into utter chaos. Brenda's lawyer tried to pull her down, but she kept talking, shouting that this proved she was a good mother, that God was blessing her with another child. Judge Foster banged her gavel repeatedly while Brenda bellowed that the court couldn't take away a pregnant mother's rights. Nathan's face went completely white. His lawyer immediately requested a sidebar. The judge ordered a recess, telling Brenda's lawyer to get his client under control. 20 minutes later, we reconvened, and the judge announced she was ordering a full psychological evaluation for Brenda before making any custody decisions. Brenda jumped up again, screaming that psychiatrists were part of the medical cartel, trying to steal children from natural parents. Her lawyer physically pulled her back into her seat while she ranted about government conspiracies. The judge, her voice ice cold, warned her that one more outburst would result in contempt charges. That same day, Nathan got a call from his boss in Cincinnati, an offer for a transfer to the Columbus office. He'd be taking a $15,000 pay cut, leaving behind all his friends and family, but he accepted immediately. He told me later he'd be sleep in his car if it meant being closer to Lily's medical team. The next morning, Lily had another session with the child psychologist. She drew pictures for almost an hour, eventually showing a drawing of her family, her mom and dad on opposite sides of a bright orange river. When asked about it, Lily quietly said she loved her mommy, but she didn't want to drink the juice anymore because it made her tummy hurt so bad. The psychologist noted that Lily had drawn herself very small, almost invisible, between her parents. 2 days later, Brenda's boyfriend Mark took the stand as a character witness. He testified that Brenda was the most caring, devoted mother he'd ever met, and that the medical establishment was persecuting her for questioning their authority. He went on for 20 minutes about natural healing and government control until the prosecutor asked him one simple question. Had you ever actually seen Lily's medical records or spoken to her doctors? Mark admitted he hadn't, because Brenda said the records were all falsified anyway. The prosecutor then called 3 pediatric endocrinologists to testify as expert witnesses. Each one meticulously explained how type 1 diabetes worked and why diet alone could never cure it. They showed brain scans and organ imaging, demonstrating the irreversible damage high blood sugar causes. One doctor explained that without insulin, Lily would have suffered kidney failure, blindness, and death within months. They presented studies from every major medical institution in the world, confirming that type 1 diabetes requires insulin for survival. Brenda just kept shaking her head, whispering furiously to her lawyer during their testimony. Angela took the stand next with a comprehensive report documenting Brenda's horrifying pattern of medical neglect. She had records from 4 different hospitals where Brenda had taken Lily and left against medical advice when insulin was mentioned. There were screenshots from Brenda's social media, showing her asking for prayers instead of medical treatment when Lily was clearly suffering. Angela also presented testimony from Lily's teachers. The child had missed 43 days of school in the past year due to illness. The depth of Brenda's delusion, the fact that she filmed herself yelling at doctors while her child was dying, and Mark's blind belief in her without even looking at medical records, it showed how these beliefs spread through absolute destructive trust, not facts. Angela's report also revealed Brenda had been reported to CPS 3 times before, but each time she'd simply moved to a different county before investigations could be completed. Angela's voice cracked as she described finding Lily unconscious, while Brenda insisted the seizures were healing reactions. After 3 days of grueling testimony, the judge finally allowed Nathan his first unsupervised visit with Lily outside the hospital. They went to a small park 2 blocks away. I watched from my car as he pushed her on the swings for almost an hour, and I saw Lily laugh for the first time since this whole nightmare began. She was still weak, having to stop every few minutes to check her blood sugar, but she looked like a normal kid, playing with her dad. Nathan bought her ice cream from a truck, and they sat on a bench, Lily excitedly telling him about her new hospital friends. When it was time to go back, Lily asked, her voice small, "Will Mommy be there?" Nathan had to tell her not today. She nodded, a quiet understanding in her eyes, and took his hand as they walked back to the hospital entrance, where Angela waited to supervise the handoff. 3 weeks later, I was back in the courtroom for closing arguments. The CPS lawyer was mid-sentence when Brenda abruptly stood up. She pointed a finger directly at me, her voice shrill. "Lily never had diabetes at all!" she shrieked. "They made up the whole thing for insurance money." Even the people who'd been supporting her in the gallery started shifting uncomfortably, exchanging glances. The judge ordered her to sit down, but Brenda barreled on, claiming we had photoshopped the test results and paid actors to pretend to be paramedics. Her own lawyer put his head in his hands as she pulled out more printed Facebook posts about how hospitals fake diagnoses. The CPS attorney waited patiently for her to finish, then calmly, methodically, walked through every single thing Brenda had done to nearly kill her daughter. He used a huge timeline board, showing each hospital visit, each time she refused treatment, every doctor who tried to help. He pointed to the day Lily went into a coma with a blood sugar of 1100. "How?" he asked the court, his voice full of incredulity. "Could that be faked when 3 different labs confirmed it?" Then he showed the horrifying photos. Lily's orange, skin from the carrot juice, the foam coming from her mouth during the seizure. Dr. Martinez took the stand next, explaining in simple, unambiguous terms that type 1 diabetes means the pancreas stops making insulin forever. "Lily will need insulin shots every day for the rest of her life," she said, "but she can live a totally normal life with proper care." She looked directly at Brenda, her voice clear and firm. "Denying insulin to a type 1 diabetic child is the same as denying food to a starving child." During the lunch break, an older woman approached Nathan in the hallway. It was Dorothy, Brenda's mom. Tears streamed down her face as she told Nathan she should have done something years ago, when Brenda first started getting into the online conspiracy stuff. She tried to get Brenda help, but Brenda had cut her off, calling her a sheep who believed in big pharma. Dorothy, her voice choked with emotion, offered to help with Lily's care if Nathan would just let her be part of her granddaughter's life. Nathan simply nodded, too overwhelmed to speak, saying they'd figure it out after the judge decided. After lunch came the moment that made everyone in the courtroom gasp. The CPS attorney called a hostile witness, the woman who ran Brenda's Facebook group about natural diabetes cures. Under oath, she admitted that 3 other kids who had followed Brenda's carrot juice protocol had ended up in the hospital, though she kept insisting it was just detox reactions. The attorney made her read posts from parents saying their kids were getting sicker on the juice diet. She tried to explain it away, but the damage was done. The truth was out. 2 days later, the judge announced she'd make her decision in 48 hours. Brenda immediately pulled out her phone, furiously muttering about judicial bias and constitutional violations, trying to file an emergency appeal with the state Supreme Court. Her lawyer tried to stop her, but she shoved him away, submitting it herself through some obscure legal website she'd found. Nathan spent those 2 days meeting with Lily's school, planning her return. The principal had already assigned a dedicated aide, trained in diabetes management, to stay with Lily all day. They meticulously went through her entire schedule, marking the nurse's office location from each classroom, ensuring every teacher knew the signs of low blood sugar. The cafeteria staff received special training on carb counting, and glucose tablets were placed in every classroom Lily would be in. Meanwhile, I was in my office typing up the final case notes, knowing this would likely be the case that defined my entire career. I meticulously documented all the medical facts and treatment plans, but at the bottom, I added a personal note about how incredibly brave Lily had been through everything. I knew I'd never submit that part officially. I just needed to write it down somewhere, a private testament to how this little girl had survived something that would have broken most adults. The next morning, the news broke. The state Supreme Court had declined to hear Brenda's emergency appeal, a terse, one-sentence decision. Brenda, unbowed, went straight to the courthouse steps, live streaming to her Facebook group, calling for people to rise up against medical tyranny. She claimed the courts were bought by insulin companies, that this was bigger than just her daughter. Only about 12 people showed up to support her, and even they looked visibly uncomfortable when she started ranting about doctors being part of a depopulation agenda. On decision day, the courtroom was so packed, people were standing in the back. The judge began reading her decision, starting with all the medical evidence, calling it overwhelming and uncontested by any credible sources. She listed every doctor who testified, every test result, every submitted medical journal article. She then looked directly at Brenda. "Ms. Holloway," she stated, her voice resonating with authority, "has provided no medical experts, no peer-reviewed studies, nothing but internet printouts and conspiracy theories." Then, the words that made everyone in that courtroom go utterly silent. "I find that Ms. Holloway exhibited gross medical neglect," the judge declared, her voice cold, hard, bordering on attempted homicide. The whole room erupted. Brenda shrieked, jumping up so fast her chair crashed backward. "I'll never stop fighting for my daughter," she screamed. The judge spoke over her, her voice rising. "Nathan Holloway will receive full legal and physical custody immediately." Brenda's face turned from a mottled red to a furious purple. She pointed at the judge, yelling about a conspiracy. The judge raised her voice further, ordering Brenda to undergo a mandatory mental health evaluation before any visitation could even be considered. And then, the final blow. "I am also referring this entire case to the prosecutor for criminal charges." Two bailiffs moved towards Brenda as she started pushing past people, trying to get to the front. She was screaming about appeals, about her constitutional rights as they grabbed her arms. Her few remaining supporters in the back started leaving, one by one, looking deeply uncomfortable. The bailiffs dragged Brenda out, her shouts of "murderers" echoing down the hall. Nathan was already at the hospital when the judge finished. I watched him run into Lily's room, pulling her into the biggest hug I'd ever seen. She was sitting up in bed, coloring. "Daddy?" she asked, her voice small. "Why are you crying?" Nathan, his voice thick with emotion, told her, "Everything is going to be okay now." She then asked, with a surprising innocence, "Is Mommy sick too?" Nathan sat on the bed and carefully explained that sometimes grown-ups need help to get better, just like kids do. Lily just nodded, then quietly went back to coloring her picture of a house with a big tree. 30 days later, I got a call from Nathan. Brenda had been arrested on child endangerment charges after the prosecutor reviewed everything. Her new boyfriend had posted her bail within hours. Nathan said she was already back on Facebook, claiming the government was persecuting her for being a natural health advocate, posting 12 videos in 2 days about how they were trying to silence her. The next week, Lily was finally discharged. Dr. Martinez had put together a meticulously detailed care plan. She even gave Lily a special teddy bear with a pocket in its belly for her glucose meter. Lily's whole face lit up. She named the bear Mr. Pokes and carried him everywhere. Nathan had found a new apartment in Columbus, right near Lily's school and the hospital. His mom, Dorothy, flew in to help him move. I stopped by to drop off some toys for Lily. Dorothy was unpacking boxes in the kitchen while Nathan assembled Lily's new bed. Lily sat on the floor organizing her stuffed animals, and when Dorothy offered to help, Lily actually said yes. It was the first time I'd seen her accept help from her grandmother without Nathan having to encourage her. The hospital board sent Dr. Martinez a fancy commendation for how she'd handled everything. She showed it to me in the cafeteria, saying she felt weird getting an award for just doing her job. Instead of framing the commendation, she had Lily's first chart with all her good blood sugar numbers framed in her office. 6 weeks after the custody ruling, Lily started seeing a therapist specializing in medical trauma in children. The therapist used dolls and toys to help Lily talk about what had happened. Nathan said Lily made a whole story with the dolls about a princess who got sick from drinking too much magic juice. The therapist was helping her work through her feelings about her mom, without making her feel guilty for still loving her. 3 months after everything started, I heard from the prosecutor's office. Brenda had taken a plea deal to avoid trial. She pled no contest to child endangerment and received 2 years probation. Part of the deal was mandatory mental health treatment, and she couldn't give any medical advice online. Lily's question about whether her mommy was sick too. It showed such deep understanding from someone so young. Kids really do pick up on more than adults realize. Brenda also couldn't have unsupervised visits with Lily until a psychiatrist cleared her. Nathan told me Brenda had already violated the social media ban twice, but her lawyer had managed to get the judge to give her warnings instead of jail time. The Facebook group Brenda had been part of started falling apart after the admin got arrested for practicing medicine without a license. Nathan showed me screenshots where members were posting apologies, saying they had no idea kids could actually die from this stuff. 3 different moms messaged him directly, apologizing for supporting Brenda and saying they had started their kids on real medical treatment. About 2 months later, Nathan threw Lily a huge 9th birthday party at their new apartment. Dorothy helped him decorate the whole place with pink streamers and balloons. Dr. Martinez actually showed up with a present, which made Lily incredibly happy. The cake was chocolate with vanilla frosting, definitely not orange. Lily checked her blood sugar right before blowing out the candles, without anyone reminding her. Nathan started going to a support group for parents of diabetic kids every Tuesday night. He told them everything that had happened with Brenda and the carrot juice. Other parents shared their own stories about relatives trying to cure their kids with weird diets. 6 months after the court stuff, Brenda's probation officer made her go to a psychiatric facility for inpatient treatment. She sent Lily a letter through the proper channels, just a simple note saying she loved and missed her. Nathan said there was nothing about natural healing or toxins in it. Dr. Martinez gave a big presentation about Lily's case at a medical conference in Cleveland. She spoke passionately about how doctors need to act fast when parents refuse life-saving treatment for their kids. The slides showed Lily's blood sugar charts, the terrifying numbers from when she was dying versus the healthy, stable levels she now maintained. Lily was doing amazing in school by then. Her teacher sent home a note saying she had way more energy and could focus better in class. During their health unit, Lily herself stood up and explained diabetes to all her classmates. She showed them her glucose monitor and insulin pen, confidently answering all their questions. 9 months after everything, the court finally scheduled the first supervised visit between Lily and Brenda. It happened at a neutral location with a social worker watching. Brenda was on medication and seemed more like her old self, according to Nathan. She actually apologized to Lily for making her so sick, though Nathan said she still seemed a little confused about some parts. That night at dinner, I watched Nathan watching Lily give herself insulin before eating. She did it perfectly, smoothly, even reminding him to log it in their tracking app on his phone. Her movements were confident, like she'd been doing it forever. A few weeks later, Dr. Martinez called me, absolutely thrilled. Lily had sent her a drawing. It showed Lily as a superhero with a cape, fighting a giant green monster labeled Sugar Monster, using an insulin pen as her sword. Dr. Martinez framed it and hung it in her office right next to her diplomas. A year after that horrible day when Lily almost died, I went to watch her soccer game. She was running around with her new team, her insulin pump clipped to her shorts, completely normal. Nathan was cheering from the sidelines, Dorothy right, beside him, holding a big foam finger. At halftime, Lily jogged over, checked her blood sugar without being asked. She drank some juice because it was a little low, then ran right back onto the field. She scored a goal in the second half and her whole team piled on top of her, celebrating. Nathan was crying happy tears, and Dorothy was snapping pictures. After the game, Lily proudly showed me how she counts carbs for her post-game snack and calculated her insulin dose on her phone app. She'd learned to manage everything about her diabetes while still being a normal kid, playing sports, hanging out with friends. Nathan told me Brenda was doing better in treatment and might get unsupervised visits next year if she kept improving. But the important thing, the only thing that mattered, was that Lily was alive, healthy, and finally living the life she deserved. This whole experience, it stayed with me. It's a powerful reminder of how fragile trust can be, and how desperately we need to protect our children from the insidious spread of misinformation. Thanks for listening to her story. It means a lot to share it.